Weirdings is made possible by listeners like you. Send us your bizarre, your creepy, and true stories, either as a written account or as an audio file, to stories@weirdings.com.
Said I saw 3 black shadows come around the corner of the building, and my heart started throbbing.
I was too scared to get up and run, and then I felt the pressure on my arm.
And I could feel its breathing. It was that close. I could feel the heat of its breath.
It was like an orange circle, like a set this,
and it was lit up,
oval, sideways oval,
and it was above the schoolyard over our house
and the woods where there was no houses. There were just woods back there.
And you're like, oh my God.
I've never asked anyone about it. I never asked the landlords about the apartment or anything because I felt if I dug into it, something else would happen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of Weirdings.
Woohoo! Welcome back.
Yes, I am Jonathan.
And I'm Colin.
This episode is bound to be a little bit fun.
Oh, yes, we are talking about aliens and not the political hot-button kind. No, we're talking about unidentified flying objects coming through the sky.
That's right. And, Colin, I have a little bit of a confession.
What's that?
I want to believe.
You want to believe? That's funny you should say that, because I, too, would like very much to believe.
Out of all of our subject material, this is the one that I probably am a little bit more sort of gung-ho about.
Mm-hmm.
It's one where anybody tells me that they've seen a UFO, I'm like, really?
Ooh.
Tell me all about it.
Oh, yeah, well, I think you won't be disappointed then in today's content.
Fantastic. So I hope the rest of you as well will be as enthusiastic about this as I am. So, let's start off with our news from the internet. Now, this one is a little goofy, but just bear with me.
Actually, we should give a general disclaimer about the content of this episode, because honestly, even though UFO stuff is very exciting and the thought of extraterrestrial life is really engaging for a lot of people, honestly, sometimes UFO stories are a little goofy. We can't promise that we're going to scare you in this episode. We just hope that you find this content very interesting, because we had some great contributors this week.
Absolutely. And we do understand that there are many people out there that have had less than cheerful experiences with UFO encounters, and by no means are we attempting to demean that type of experience. If you've ever had an experience such as an abduction or a UFO encounter or an alien encounter that has caused you to be scared, please feel free to share it with us, and we'll be more than happy to talk about it.
You know, not to get too far off track before you go for the weekly news, but did I ever tell you that I actually had an experience myself when I was very young?
No.
I haven't told you this? I thought I told you. Yeah, I had a night paralysis episode, which very closely matches the sort of garden variety encounter story, including the bright lights outside my window of various colors, the night paralysis, which if anyone is not familiar, that's when you're awake, laying in your bed, and you can't move your body, but you're 100% aware of everything around you. And then the big smoking gun is I had a glowing figure appear before me in my bedroom, in my childhood bedroom. Yeah, and glowing figure, and it raised one hand, which is also very common, I understand, in night paralysis stories. Glowing figure raised one hand in a non-threatening sort of like, be not afraid sort of way, and then it was gone and I could move again.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I was probably about 10 years old.
That is probably the most serious we're going to get all episode.
I thought I'd get it out of the way now.
All right. For this episode's news, this is an article by Brett Tingley. I'm not going to say the title because it kind of, I'll say the title at the end of our little discussion here. It gives away too much, I kind of feel. In Southern California last week, there was a strange UFO that appeared seemingly out of nowhere within the San Gabriel Valley, roughly around August 28th. The object seemed to be an odd sort of metallic orb hovering in the sky, and it was meandering silently along at roughly a snail's pace. Onlookers were filming the object with smartphones. A Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department helicopter had to go and investigate it and circle the object overhead. In one of the videos, Julian Lopez, who was filming, echoed wonder and confusion of all the other locals. He said, "Well, my friends, there's a UFO over the San Gabriel Valley."
Well.
Now, as rumors began to swirl locally and online, they began to post images to news outlets and Twitter feeds. And that's about the time that most people figured out what this UFO actually was. One of the eyewitnesses, John Golohue, told the Pasadena Star News that despite the UFO buzz, some witnesses got a close enough look to identify the orb. "I noticed the UFO Monday around 10 a.m. from Monrovia. There was a large buzz about it on Facebook with residents of Sierra Madre. One person took a telephoto shot of it. It appeared to be an advertisement balloon for the THC e-cigarette that got away. I followed it across the foothills from above Sierra Madre towards Monrovia Canyon around 11:30 a.m.
Wait. It was just an ad?
Yeah, it was apparently the object was merely a balloon advertising a local head shop called Brass Knuckles, which sells marijuana concentrates and other vaping products. Yeah, so Brass Knuckles, they did not mean to cause a UFO scare, but I bet they're loving all the press right now.
Oh my God. Close Encounters of the Vape Kind!
Exactly. This is an article released on September 10th, 2017 by Brett Tingley, and the title is Runaway Marijuana Balloon Causes UFO Panic in Southern California. It's fantastic.
That's delightful.
Yes.
Last episode was Bigfoot munching on nugs. This week it's marijuana UFOs.
Yeah, I think people are going to kind of put together a picture of us that's not actually true.
We should
Neither
call
of us
this
are.
podcast Weedings.
Oh, terrible! Oh no!
Oh boy.
Let's go ahead and move on to our personal account.
Always remember that for the personal accounts, although it's convenient if it fits the theme of the week, it doesn't have to. If you've had a paranormal experience that you've just got to share, we'll find a way to fit it in. Just send them in.
Tabby Walters is not only our graphic artist for the show, she's also one of our most enthusiastic story collectors. When she found out we were doing an episode on UFOs, she immediately contacted a source she knew with a first-hand witness of a possible UFO encounter. The people interviewed prefer to be identified as T&L.
Yeah,
From Michigan.
TL from Michigan.
T&L's story takes place right in an area of southeast Michigan that's had its fair share of sightings going as far back as the 1960s.
How old were we anyways?
We were probably about 10.
10 years old.
Here's T&L recounting their experience.
We had taken pretty much my entire bedroom outside.
This greenhouse.
It was this collapsible screen house from Sears. Out in the backyard. We had taken like the radio, sleeping bags. We had these cots.
Peter, her dad, hooked us up and had literally everything. We were totally hooked up for the night. We were brave. We were going to sleep outside.
Yep. And then we got everything outside. We went outside and we laid down. And then you saw this big orange UFO.
It was like an orange
circle,
like this shape.
And it was lit up.
Oval. Sideways oval.
And it was above the schoolyard over our house.
And the woods, where there was no houses. There were just woods back there.
And you're like, oh my God. So my friend was like, I'm going to run in to meet your parents. But she was going to leave me outside. I'm like, no! So we both went running in the house, grabbed my parents. They didn't believe us. And by the time they got outside, it was gone.
But we both saw it.
Yeah.
It was orange. It was oval. And it was kind of going... just circling or like a little bit back and forth, and we both saw it. So I think it's real. Now,
it was real.
The mom, Alice, said she believed us.
Yeah.
Peter said no.
T&L also shared an addendum to their story, explaining what happened to them in the following weeks.
Then the following weekend...
Well, can I tell what Peter did real quick?
That was the following weekend.
Quick joke of what Peter did. We went to TL's bedroom and this part. We got all set up in her bedroom to go to sleep. And the next thing we know, we heard some noises out the window.
That's right.
And her dad, Peter, had gotten one of those bop-em, sock-em, blow-up things that you box with. It's a boxing glove. It's an orange bopper boxing glove, and shoved a flashlight up in it and was circling it outside the window.
Yeah.
In honor of our UFO.
And then he did it the following weekend when we tried to sleep outside again in your dad's truck.
Yep.
But with the music from Battlestar Galactica.
And scared the crap out of us.
Yeah.
So thus, we sleep inside now.
Yeah.
No camping for us.
Outside again.
Traumatized children signing off.
I like the 2-man personal account. That's cool.
I got to admit, it made me chuckle, especially with the little after story that they provided to us.
Oh, yeah.
I do actually have some follow-up research, if you're interested. And T&L, I hope you're listening, because there is some pretty interesting stuff going around in the southeast Michigan area, specifically in the town where your encounter happened. Perhaps the most famous in southeast Michigan is the Great UFO Chase of '66. It started in Dexter and soon spread all across Washtenaw County. The chase, involving 100 sightings over several days and a motorized posse of a dozen Washtenaw County deputies who chased but could not catch a flying football-shaped object, witnesses said traveled at a high rate of speed and turned from blue-green to brilliant red to yellow. So an orange football-shaped object? Sound kind of familiar? Yeah. So that's 1966. Let's move forward to December 3rd, 1972. A man and his daughter driving home from KFC on US 12 at 7 p.m. noticed a yellow-orange orb in the sky. The light was so bright it was illuminating nearby snow clouds. They watched it, thinking it was a plane, until it sped off at an angle and disappeared.
Ooh.
December 12th, 1977, a couple driving home from church through the town witnessed a yellow football-shaped object pacing their car before vanishing over a field. April 23rd, 2009, a man watching the sky from his back porch was pointing out a satellite to his 6-year-old son. The orangish light was moving in an expected arc until it surprised both the man and his son by taking a sudden 90-degree turn at increased speed, causing them to lose it behind cloud cover. In November 11th, 2011, a tour guide for a local air museum reported a cylindrical object hovering over US 12 near the town at about 2,000 feet. He watched it for 20 minutes before it vanished.
Oh, man.
On August 31st, 2014, a motorist reported 3 orange football-shaped objects flying in the sky, switching between a triangle formation and a single line before disappearing one by one. September 5th, 2015, 3 light red orb-shaped objects were witnessed alternating formation between a triangle and a line by a man and his wife before speeding off in separate directions. So, T&L, it looks like they keep coming back. Maybe something that Richard did when he was flashing that orange light into the sky was sending out a signal.
He sent up a beacon.
Yep, saying, hey, come on back.
So, it's interesting. you mentioned the football-shaped object, and then you also mentioned the orbs of light. And I noticed that these are the two most common recurring UFO-type things. Is like you've got the disc things, and then you've got the orb things.
Well, in southeast Michigan, certainly. That's been the most common that I've seen. Now, other states actually have different shapes.
And I know we're getting to that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But I just think it's so interesting because, everybody thinks about like the gray aliens or whatever, but, it could be that we've got, 40 different kinds of extraterrestrials exploring the Earth in their different types of vessels, and we just don't know what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Just spitballing, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. Good stuff.
So, I believe at this point, Colin has a segment for us.
I certainly do. I came across another one of our wonderful contributors who wanted to share, so here you go. Kira reached out to me via Facebook when she heard we were looking for stories of the weird. She runs a paranormal blog of her own and has a lot of experiences to share. In this short account, she reports seeing something strange in the skies over Bridgewater, Massachusetts. She sent me her tale via Facebook Messenger, so it's my voice you'll be hearing, but her words. I was a guest on a local radio show, waiting out on location, ghost hunting, waiting my turn. I looked up in the sky, and right over the highway, just west of where I was, there was a round object flying in a circle. There was a faint glow of light off it, just enough to turn the surrounding sky a dark gray. It circled like that for a good 5 to 10 minutes, then suddenly shot off toward the north, so fast that the faint light almost left a chemtrail behind it. It disappeared behind the tree line after that.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah, how about that, huh?
So many people just report the same types of sightings over and over again. You get these objects, they're obviously not moving like planes, they're either moving in circles, and then they just spontaneously just jet off.
Yeah, there's some kind of outrageously advanced propulsion system as at work, because they're always jutting off at high speeds or at crazy angles from their initial trajectory, mm-hmm. and all these stories have that.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting about Kira's story, though, actually isn't just the UFO, but it's actually the setting, which is why I made sure to mention it early on, because Kira's story led me on a wonderful journey to a place called Bridgewater, Massachusetts, also in a region also known as the Bridgewater Triangle. So the Bridgewater Triangle is a region in Massachusetts with the towns of Abington, Freetown, and Rehoboth at its corners. And forgive my pronunciations, I just learned these today, and Rehoboth totally sounds like somewhere that Cthulhu would live. But so Abington, Freetown, and Rehoboth make up the corners of this vaguely triangular area called the Bridgewater Triangle, and the town of Bridgewater is like right in the center of this place, and it's about 200 square mile patch of US of A, and it has been a hotbed of paranormal activity for over 250 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I say paranormal activity, I mean all kinds of paranormal stuff. I'm talking about Bigfoot, ghosts, thunderbirds, which you mentioned in the previous episode, mm-hmm. sightings of orbs, balls of fire, giant snakes, satanic cults, poltergeists, and other spectral phenomenon. Basically, if it's weird, the Bridgewater Triangle has it.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really crazy. I mean, I can't even get into all the stuff that the Bridgewater Triangle has, because I would be skipping over so many themes from so many of our episodes. It would just it's actually too much to put in one. But the best part about it for today is what it really has most of all is UFO sightings.
Huh.
In fact, the Bridgewater Triangle may be home to the first ever recorded UFO sighting from all the way back in May of 1760.
Really?
Yes. And I don't know where the original document with this eyewitness report is on it, but according to several cross-referenced internet sources, witnesses reported seeing a sphere of fire brighter than the sun on that day, way back when. Things slow down in the UFO front for about 140 years, but you've got sightings all throughout the 20th century in the Bridgewater Triangle. Another sighting, like 1761, on Halloween in the year 1908. In 1968, 5 people reported seeing a ball of light floating through the trees in Rehoboth. 1970s, frequent UFO sightings reported, including 2 landing along Route 44. So you've got not just like the sky one, flying through the sky, but actual people saying that they've seen them land in this area.
Wow.
In 1994, a Bridgewater law enforcement officer reported seeing a triangular craft with red and white lights. And the town of Raynham still frequently receives reports of glowing balls of light floating all around like the local dog track and stuff there. It's like in the Bridgewater Triangle, it just doesn't stop.
Huh.
It's like, yeah. And that stuff, I gotta tell you, it doesn't even scratch the surface of all the weirdness going on in this one little area in Massachusetts. Like there's weird stone carvings. There's a rock called Profile Rock where like it looks like a face from the side. It almost looks like an Easter Island head. Strange, like almost Norse-looking carvings in this big rock that they've now erected a museum around. There's a legend of like a Native American curse because of some wampum belt that was stolen from some chief years ago. I mean, it's like, this stuff is nuts. So if you're taking a paranormal road trip around the USA, make sure you put the Bridgewater Triangle on your list.
It's on mine. I'll tell you that. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's where my next vacation is going to happen, at the Bridgewater Triangle.
Well, you might see a clone of yourself there or something. I don't know. I mean,
oh boy. Doppelgangers are something that we're going to get into in a later episode. And let me tell you, there's some weird stuff with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, back to fun. We're not going to spook you out with any doppelganger stories. Trust me. We're going to talk about some more UFOs, but we are going to do that after our break.
See you in a minute. Hey everyone, while John and I love researching interesting stories for the show, our favorite part is the listener contributions. We want to make sure to thank our contributors and let you know how to reach us with your stories. The best way to reach us is via a message through our Facebook page or contact us via email at stories@weirdings.com. We accept written accounts or recorded audio files. Be sure to tell us how you want to be credited, for instance, by your name or anonymously. If you'd rather set up a time to be interviewed by one of us, send us a message with a date and time and the best way to reach you. We prefer audio-only Skype, but other methods are available to us. We take extra care when editing our submissions not to reveal any personal information unless you ask that it be included. And we promise the submitted content is always presented in the spirit in which it was given. Thanks again, and we look forward to hearing from you. And we're back. Welcome back to Weirdings. Thanks for sticking around. Now, John's got some really interesting stuff from, I believe, the early 21st century. Is
That's
that
right? To the year 2000, when everybody was worried about Y2K.
The future.
That's right. Everybody was worried about Y2K. The police officers in the southwestern part of Illinois were worried about something else entirely. Perhaps one of the most famous UFO sightings in Illinois, the occurrence on January 5th, 2000 in the southwestern part of the state has befuddled many who have researched it afterwards. The witnesses of the events are generally regarded to be pretty reliable, as it consisted mostly of police officers who tracked the object via police radio as it made its way across the sky. The first witness was Melvin Knoll, an owner of a miniature golf course. Melvin worked as a truck driver in the off-season when his course was closed. In the early morning hours, when he returned home just after a delivery, he decided to make a quick stop at his golf course. Exiting his truck, he noticed a very bright star but didn't think much of it, and hurried into his building. He spent about 30 minutes inside before leaving, and when he hit the parking lot, he noticed the star had moved and was a lot brighter. As he watched it, he noticed it was actually a very large object. He described it as tall, with a set of windows that ran down the side. He stated the windows were issuing a very bright light. As it got closer, he noticed several red lights on the object's bottom. The color of the object was either black or a deep gray. When recounting the experience, he described it as a 2-story house in the sky. He watched as it moved silently towards the southwest, passing slightly over him. He realized as it moved past that it was moving much slower than he was used to seeing aircraft move, and it did not resemble conventional aircraft in shape, which was rectangular and not aerodynamic. As it headed away, he got into his truck and raced over to the Highland police station. He knew whomever was on duty would likely not believe him, but he was hoping whoever was there might be able to contact the next town to confirm the sighting. The dispatcher, while skeptical, did place a call to the neighboring town of Lebanon at 4:15 a.m. Officer Ed Barton caught the call and thought it was a joke at first. When the dispatcher assured him it was an actual request, the officer drove to the north end of town, past Horner Park, and onto Whitacus Road. He saw nothing odd but decided to follow the road as it turned northeast towards Illinois Route 4. Shortly after, he saw 2 bright lights in the distance. When he hit Route 4, he turned south back towards town, placing the odd lights on his driver's side. As he watched, the 2 lights seemed to merge into one light. He then started his rollers as he believed he was witnessing a low-flying plane in some sort of mechanical distress. As he kept watching the object, he started to notice that the round light he thought was seeing was actually more oblong. He also noticed that the object was not actually moving relative to him, but was actually sitting stationary over the town of Summerfield. When the object began moving again in his direction, he shut down his lights, his car, and his radio and rolled down the window to see if he could identify the craft by noise. He indicated the object made no sound as it approached and was entirely silent. As it got closer, details became easier to spot. He described the object as a massive narrow triangle with points of white light at each corner. The lights never flickered or wavered and seemed to be aimed downwards. They did not spotlight the ground, but were bright enough to provide some illumination. He also noticed smaller red lights along the bottom of the ship. Eventually, he noticed the object had now blotted out the sky and was directly overhead. He estimated it was at max 1,000 feet above the ground, but even from this vantage point, the object made no noise. The object turned towards the southwest but did not bank, rather it rotated, remaining perfectly level as it moved on. He immediately fired up his radio again and reported what he had seen as the object began to gain speed. From this vantage, he could see rectangular white lights on what he assumed was the back of the object. He informed the dispatcher the object was heading for the town of Shiloh. Officer David Martin of the Shiloh PD radioed back that he could see something in the sky. He was driving the southern end of town and saw the object moving west. Martin confirmed the 3 white lights and the small flashing red light on the undercarriage. Like other witnesses, he reported the object made no sound. He chased it for as long as he was able until the craft picked up speed and left the area. By this point, most of the local area officers had keyed into the radio conversation that was happening and were attempting to assist with tracking the object through the surrounding small towns. One officer attempted to snap a Polaroid of the object when it was sighted outside Millstadt near Liederkrantz Park. Unfortunately, he was unable to snap a usable photo as it was still dark and cold. A likely combination of excited handling of the camera, the poor flash of most Polaroids at the time, and frozen breath produced a murky and barely discernible image. Shortly after, the sighting ceased. Not long after the January 5th event, the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department released the dispatch tapes to the public.
I'm actually going to read some excerpts. Dispatcher. Lebanon, this is a call from Highland PD in reference to a truck driver who just stopped in. He said there was a flying object in the area of Lebanon. It was like a 2-story house. It had white lights and red blinking lights, and it was last seen southwest over Lebanon. Can you check the area? Lebanon officer. Did they say the truck driver was DUI or anything? 10-4, I'm out. Some time passes. Just a quick question. If I happen to find it, what am I supposed to do with it? If I see it, I'm not saying a word. Also, be advised, the last thing that went over Lebanon, this was approximately 5 minutes ago, was a military cargo plane. It looked like a C-5.
Oh.
Be advised, there is a very bright white light east of town. It looks like it's just east of Summerfield, and it keeps changing colors. I'll go over there and see if it looks like an aircraft. It doesn't look like an aircraft, though. It's not the moon, and it's not a star. If you would you contact Scott Air Force Base and see if they have anything flying in this area, please? Whether it's a plane or not, it's heading westbound now. It should be really close to Scott now. As a matter of fact, if the Shiloh officer looks up, they can probably see it by now. Shiloh officer, I see something, but I don't know what the heck it is. It's probably heading to Lambert, which is the St. Louis airport. Millstat officer, apparently this is when people start sort of chiming in. Millstat officer, I've got that object in sight also. Dispatcher, are you serious? Millstat officer, it's huge.
Whoa.
Dispatcher, does it look like a... What does it look like to you? Millstat officer, it's kind of V-shaped. It looks like it's possibly headed towards Lambert. Dispatcher, 10-4, that's what Shiloh said when it headed towards Fairview Heights. One of the officers takes the opportunity at this point to start humming the theme song to the Twilight Zone over his radio. Millstat officer, really? Does Duplo have a Polaroid? Dupo, I'm sorry. Does Dupo have a Polaroid? Dispatcher, that I don't know. Dupo officer, 6004, this is 3923 on County Radio Channel 2. Millstat officer, 6004, go ahead. Dupo officer, I'm not sure what you're seeing. It appears to be pretty high in the area. When I could first see it with binoculars, you could see it was different colors. Now it appears to be white. Millstat officer, is it very large? Dupo officer, it's hard to tell. It's pretty far off in the distance. Millstat officer, this object was above me about 500 feet, and it was huge. Dupo officer, this thing appears, it's probably 20 or 30,000. It's about where the planes usually are. It's not low at all. Now that's just kind of some of the chatter that was coming through the dispatcher through that entire area. Now, Scott Air Force Base did go on record stating after the event that they did not detect the large ship on January 5th. For those of you who are interested in more detail about the event, there are quite a few documentaries on YouTube ranging from the good to the not so great. A simple search of Illinois Black Triangle will pull up most of them.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Whew.
That one I like, and the reason I like it is because it's basically just a bunch of police officers freaking out.
Yeah, the dialogue is so genuine.
Yeah, it is. It is. Now, the story surrounding it, obviously, a lot more of it is fleshed out in a lot of these documentaries. That's where you're going to get a lot of that background info.
There's got to be a lot of pretty wild conjecture about what that thing is.
I'm sure it would have to be. I mean, Scott Air Force Base, which was right by the area where all this was happening, said there was no radar activity during that night. Several people have gone on record and stated that Scott Air Force Base does not test experimental planes. So it's not like it was an experimental military craft. Well, at least one that we know of.
Oh, sure they don't.
Yeah. So, who knows? Could it have been visitors from another planet?
Ooh.
Could it have been an experimental military aircraft?
Could it have been some other thing?
Like swamp gas.
Yes, it could be swamp gas. Yeah, or the Northern Lights. Could be the Northern Lights.
Yes, that's the one. Whenever you see a UFO in Michigan, that's what they tell you it is. It's the Northern Lights.
Yep, it's the Northern Lights, which don't look anything like a flying craft. They look more like a rainbow than anything, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like a warped, weird rainbow.
Well, that is our episode for this week.
Yes. Next episode, we're going to be doing some really interesting stuff. We're talking about ghosts in the machine. We're talking about weird technology, EVP, number stations, and other unusual phenomenon surrounding technology.
That's right. Technology and its relation to the paranormal. Be sure to join us, because I can guarantee you may not have gotten your spooky this week, but you are definitely going to be getting your spooky next week.
Oh yes, because if you've never listened to EVP before, that's one of the things that freaks me out personally. I find those very, very, very scary. And I believe the EVP stands for what? Electronic voice phenomenon? Is that?
That is correct.
Okay,
yep.
Yeah.
Electronic voice phenomenon.
So yeah, and they've made some really crappy movies about it. So
yes, White Noise with Michael Keaton. Well, we'll see you next episode.
That's all for now. now. We'll see you next time. Weirdings is produced and edited by Jonathan Barrop and Colin McMillan. Our theme was composed and produced by David Feslian. You can find this track and many more like it at feslianstudios.com. Additional music was provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, Purple Planet Music at www.purple-planet.com, and the Blake Robinson Synthetic Orchestra at syntheticorchestra.com. Weirdings relies heavily on listener contributions. If you would like to provide content for the show, send your written accounts or audio files of you sharing your experience at stories@weirdings.com. You can also contact us through our Facebook page or through the comments on our webpage at weirdings.com. Weirdings can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere podcasts can be found. Tell your friends about us, and thanks for listening.